Myles Garrett has demanded a trade, and I'm trying to go over some teams that possibly could fit the demands he laid out, such as a contender and such as a team that needs defensive help more than offensive help. That parameter is more my thing. I'm going to go through a couple teams here that I think are realistic. I'm going to try to mention 5 and go through them all. So for me, we have the Bengals, the Falcons, the Lions, the Bills, and I'm going to say the Chargers. The Chargers. So the Chargers could use the help because watching that Texans game in the playoffs, the very first round, did Herbert throw his career away? Sure. Okay. Yes. But the defense letting CJ Stroud catch his groove in the second half and sort of just put them out of their misery as quick as he didn't help whatsoever. And on top of that, that would be like one of the best lines in the league. You would have Mack is still there, I believe, Khalil Mack. You would have Bosa, and now Garrett's going to be out of there as well. Phenomenal line. You're going to have Herbert with enough time to patch through his mistakes. And also on top of that, they're going to allow the team to be held down so much and they can't pass. They're just going to be too scared to pass. And run the ball every single time. You can't run the ball with someone big as Myles Garrett over there because what you going to do? You're going to run right into him and then boom, there you go. Now, the tiny problem with this, like I mentioned before, would be fit and would be the fact that the Chargers need more offensive help, I would say. They need a bit more of a reliable running back room. They need a bit more of a reliable receiver room, given all the pieces have gone. And I have criticized Herbert, not on the channel, but like in general for that game, simply given the fact that he played phenomenally the entire season. Just to lay an egg in one of his biggest games of the year is kind of unfortunate. However, if he had weapons to help him out, then maybe he wouldn't have laid the egg as big as he did, and maybe Myles Garrett could fit in there. That's why I'm saying this wouldn't be full stop move that I would see happening, but they have the cap space, they have a desire to want to be better, and they did make the playoffs last year. So those are like 3 pillars that make you want to go, okay, this is possibly a move that you can look into. Another team that's in a similar position where I don't see this happening, but it's so close on the precipice of them becoming this perennial threat is the Bengals. In a similar situation where Joe Burrow didn't necessarily lay an egg, but the organization has a culture problem, specifically on the defensive side. I've seen it with the Ravens from the first half of the season. Something clicked in the second half, all the way through the playoffs. They played phenomenally. The reason why the Ravens lost in playoffs was because the offense just did not have it together, but the defense held through. And the Bengals, I feel like if they just have an average defense or someone as phenomenal as Myles Garrett there to help Hendrickson on the other side, the sky is the limit. Maybe they can go back to the Super Bowl. Maybe they can stop talking about Joe Burrow's only accomplishment, which to them is beating Patrick Mahomes like 40 years ago, right? Maybe they can do something else, because at this point, the Bengals are putting up Madden numbers. Jamar Chase just got the triple crown. Joe Burrow basically led every single quarterback stat top 3 in everything you can think of, a name of, right? Hendrickson, leading sacks, did not make the playoffs. And there are numerous reasons why, but the main 2 are, number 1, the defensive culture. It just wasn't tough enough. It wasn't focused on stopping plays. I don't know what they were doing out there. I'm gonna be honest with you, I have no idea. I would watch the games. I would see just Russell Wilson tear through them like butter. When we see how he plays, that should not have been possible, but the Bengals defense made him look like he deserved a $20 million a year contract. So if we have Myles Garrett there to just even apply pressure, you don't even have to have perennial secondary, because I feel like if you just have enough pressure on the front, you can sort of just lay it in God's hands. If you don't touch the quarterback, if you don't mess with him, you don't get in his head, then hey, that's your fault, right? But the reason why I say this isn't probably going to happen is because they have to deal with T. Higgins leaving, because that's definitely going to happen. The owner's not paying T. Higgins and Chase like $60 million a year for both of them, with Burrow being $50 million a year, meaning that 3 key pieces of your 53-man team is going to be $110 million around, give or take. Not going to happen. So they're going to be so focused on the offensive side that the defensive side, so they're going to waver. But in a perfect world, an ideal world, he would fit there, give them the relief they need, allow Burrow to flourish, and possibly make a Super Bowl run next year. But it's not going to happen. Now, the more realistic ones would be The Falcons. Now, the Falcons are in my division. I'm a Bucks fan. I know. And I don't want them to flourish. I don't want them to be with the Falcons. That's horrible. But I say the Falcons mainly for this. Kirk Cousins, whether he stays or not, doesn't matter. Penix is the future. Atlanta has made it so. Penix has sort of made it so. I've seen the interviews with him here and there, and they are going with him as the future. So if that's said, you have Pitts, right? You have Bijan Robinson, right? So what you need at this point is a solid defensive culture change, very similar to the Bengals. If anything, the Falcons are a better version of what the Bengals are now. Only problem is the Falcons have sort of like a new quarterback, so they don't really know what's going to happen next year. But they have the offensive prowess in every single skill position. Wide receiver, tight end, running back, check. All that said, offensive line is stable enough to allow Kirk Cousins to have a 500-yard game. All my Buccaneers, so I know they're at least average at best. And if you are average at best with those skill positions, you just throw it up there, pray to God, and one's going to catch it, run it, touchdown, right? All said and done. The offense is phenomenal. So all you need to worry about is that defense. And Atlanta, look, the last game of the season versus Carolina, I will admit, right, you sort of caught them at the worst time because they were rolling. Bryce Young had his confidence back. Leggett had his confidence back. The whole team bought into the culture. Dave Canals locked them in. You got your boy from Raw Room Podcast locked them in as well. They were all excited. They ran in there, ruined your entire year, right? But you can use that momentum to carry on through next season. And you can say, oh, we didn't have a full offseason for our true quarterback. We didn't have a full TA for our true quarterback. Now you can do that and carry on. Add Myles Garrett into that. Boom, you're in the playoffs, knocking us out, and you're a division winner. Plus, our division isn't always that competitive. At best, you're going to be competing with Carolina again. At worst, it's Carolina and Tampa Bay because the Saints aren't going anywhere. And I can see the Falcons with Myles Garrett winning 11 games, without him, like 9 or 10, maybe. But Myles Garrett, if the cap space is there, because that's another problem, I don't think the space is there. So that's why I'm going back to the fantasy land what if scenario and what could make them a very strong contending team. And that could be one for sure. Now, the problem I run into with this being a realistic team for me is what I just mentioned before, Michael Penix being as young as he is. So therefore, would Myles Garrett be willing to take the risk of waiting minimum half a season for Michael Penix to finally get the ropes in, or would he just move on? Because if I'm Myles Garrett, I'm not going on the Falcons. But all the Falcons need is like defensive help, and they are playoff bound every single year. So that's why I think it's a possibility. But there are definitely cons to that. And the ones that are no cons are the Bills and Lions. No cons whatsoever. You got to pick one of those two teams for very obvious reasons. The Bills, they just need like 3 more pieces and they're Super Bowl bound. Why do I say 3 more pieces? Because they keep getting pieces, keep adding. They had Amari Cooper. They have James Cook, phenomenal. They have Kincaid. They have Von Miller still, I believe. And they have all these pieces. Hamlin at times. They have a bunch of players that can get the job done, that rooted the Ravens out of the playoffs this year and looked phenomenal doing it. But the problem is, I don't know what happens. Oh, I know what happens. But every single time they face the Chiefs, they can't get it done, no matter what. And if you just have anybody out there who can defensively help you to get one more stop to make sure Josh Allen has the ball at the last possession, Josh Allen will get it done and carry his team to the Super Bowl. And then Detroit. Detroit is probably going to be my most realistic pick here out of all these teams, simply because of 2 reasons alone. Number 1, Aiden Hutchinson insurance, and number 2, defensive culture change. And you would need this defensive culture change because of the amount of injuries, the amount of next man ups that had to step up at a certain point, and also how demoralized the entire team is losing to a rookie quarterback in such an embarrassing fashion. You need someone so just built for the moment to get in there and sop up all that sadness and go, fuck this, man. I've seen worse. I've lived worse. I've been in worse. Let's go out there and win a game for our gang and win it all. That's basically that. Honorable mentions are going to be the Seahawks, my Buccaneers, Eagles, Chiefs. But in reality, every team could really want to get Myles Garrett. Therefore, there isn't really like a right or wrong answer, except they have to be contenders, i.e. either made the playoffs or like missed by an inch. And preferably a quarterback that isn't like 1 or 2 year rookie, minus the Falcons problem.